In the frozen heart of Moscow, where silence carried secrets and shadows had names, a man walked alone through the falling snow. His name was Michael Archer, though that wasn't the one printed on his passport. To the world, he was Mark Andrews, a low-level cultural attaché at the American Embassy. Quiet, polite, forgettable. But behind those gray eyes and that bland smile lived a man who carried the weight of two nations' lies. Michael Archer was one of the CIA's best field officers, fluent in Russian, an expert in tradecraft, and haunted by the ghosts of every agent he'd ever recruited. Moscow was his battlefield, but his war wasn't fought with bullets. It was fought with trust. And in Moscow, trust was more dangerous than treason. It was January 1985, the peak of the Cold War's second winter. Reagan called the Soviet Union an evil empire, and the KGB took those words personally. They were hunting Americans in Moscow like wolves stalk wounded prey. Every embassy car was tailed, every phone was bugged, and every diplomat knew that somewhere, someone was listening. But Archer had a mission, and it was the kind that never made the newspapers. A high-ranking Soviet officer, codename Orion, had reached out through a secret channel. He was ready to betray his country. He wanted to pass information that could tilt the balance of nuclear power in America's favor. Archer had been chosen to handle him, not because he was reckless, but because he was careful. Too careful. The CIA trusted him with the kind of mission that could rewrite history, or end it. For 6 months, Archer and Orion danced a deadly ballet across the city. Their meetings were ghosts, fleeting, silent, invisible. A book left in a park. A coded mark on a lamppost. A flash of a lighter in a subway station meant abort. A red scarf on a bench meant safe. Each meeting risked everything. Each message carried lives inside it. But Archer had a rule: never fall for your agent's cause. That's how you die. And yet, somewhere between the whispered exchanges and the midnight walks through empty Moscow streets, Archer began to feel something he hadn't felt in years: belief. Orion wasn't just giving secrets. He was risking his soul for something bigger, for freedom, for truth, for the dream that someday, men like him wouldn't have to hide in shadows to do the right thing. Then came the night everything changed. It was February 23rd, 1985. The wind howled across Pushkin Square, carrying the smell of burning coal and cheap vodka. Archer walked fast, collar up, hat low, carrying a single brown briefcase. Inside it were documents so explosive they could dismantle the Soviet nuclear command structure and expose half of the KGB's overseas network. He was supposed to meet Orion one last time, extract him through Finland, and disappear. But that night, Moscow felt different. The air was too still. The streetlights flickered like dying fireflies. And when Archer looked over his shoulder, he saw it: a Lada sedan, dark blue, headlights off, following from 3 car lengths back. He didn't panic. Panic was death. He crossed the street casually, ducked into an alley, and took the long way to the drop site, an old Orthodox church that had long since lost its faith. He entered through the side door. The candles were cold. The icons stared down with blank, painted eyes. And there, in the flicker of a single cigarette lighter, stood Orion. "Tu опоздал," the Russian said softly. "You're late." "I had company," Archer replied. "Did you bring it?" Orion nodded. He reached into his coat, pulled out a microfilm case, and placed it on the wooden pew between them. "Everything I promised. Warhead schematics, command codes, deployment sites. It's all here." Archer looked at the case, the size of a coin, the weight of a nation, and for a moment he felt relief. The mission was over. The world would change. Then he saw something else. A glint, a shadow behind the altar. Faint metallic click. "Run," Archer whispered. But before either man could move, the church doors exploded inward. The light of flashlights cut through the smoke. Voices barked in Russian. "Ruka vverch," hands up! And the red insignia of the KGB flared like blood in the dark. Archer dove behind a pew, gun out, but it was hopeless. They were everywhere. 10, maybe 12 agents. And in the chaos, Orion didn't run. He stood still, his eyes filled not with fear, but sorrow. "Forgive me," Orion said in English. that was when Archer understood. He hadn't been betrayed by the KGB. He'd been betrayed by the CIA. The KGB dragged Archer out into the snow, blood on his face, hands cuffed. The Lada's headlights cut through the storm as a man stepped out, tall, trench coat, American shoes. Archer blinked through the blood. He recognized the face. Tom Delaney, his handler, his friend. The man who'd toasted him at his wedding and called him the best we've got. Delaney lit a cigarette, exhaled slowly. You weren't supposed to find out this way, Mike. Why? Archer rasped. Delaney's eyes didn't move. Because Washington doesn't want heroes. It wants leverage. And then he turned, got into the car, and drove away, leaving Archer in the snow, the KGB laughing behind him. The rest was a blur. Interrogations that lasted days. Rooms with no windows. Cigarettes that burned out before the questions did. They broke his body, but not his silence. Every time they asked him who he worked for, he said the same thing. I don't remember. He remembered everything. After 117 days, he was traded in a prisoner exchange, one forgotten American for 2 Russian engineers. When he came home, there was no parade, no press, no medals. There was only silence. The CIA called it a compromised operation. His file was sealed. His name erased. Michael Archer moved to Montana. He lived quietly, under a new name, in a small wooden cabin near the mountains. No one knew who he was. Not his neighbors. Not his wife. Not even his son. But sometimes, at night, he'd sit by the window and listen to the wind. And in it, he could still hear Orion's voice. Forgive me. He never knew whether Orion had lived or died. Some said the KGB executed him. Others whispered he'd been extracted by the CIA after all. But Archer didn't believe in whispers anymore. He believed in ghosts. And in Moscow, ghosts never really die. Years later, in 2001, long after the Soviet Union had collapsed and the Cold War had turned to dust, Archer received a letter. No return address. No name. Just a single line, typed on yellowed paper. The man who betrayed you is gone, but the truth still lives in Moscow. He never spoke of it. But the next morning, he bought a plane ticket to Helsinki. That was the last time anyone saw him. Some say he crossed into Russia again, one last mission, one last reckoning. Others believe he finally met the ghost who haunted him, Orion, or perhaps the man he used to be. All we know is this. On a quiet morning in 2002, a Russian journalist found a gravestone in a forgotten cemetery outside Moscow. It bore no name, only a single inscription, written in English, for truth, in silence. And below it, carved faintly into the stone, were the initials. Because in the world of espionage, loyalty is just another illusion. And sometimes the only thing a spy can die for is the truth no one will ever believe.